you've been here in Watchet 18 years, and I came down here first about 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And started to talk to you about this building,
Yeah.
without any sense of how long this building would take. But one of the things I felt quite early on was this was the most ambitious project I'd ever been involved with from a social perspective.
So I don't even think that we thought it was ambitious. It just seemed the only thing that could happen. So we spent a group of friends week on week on week in the pub drinking cider, talk about what should happen in this place. And this particular piece of land was owned by the council, and a developer was going to develop 80 flats on the site. And when it became clear that that was going to fall through, it seemed really obvious to us that it shouldn't be flats that would be owned as second homes. It should be something that would benefit the community and make this place even better. In the early days, we got some money to run town-wide consultations, asking what does Watchet need. So it wasn't so much about what do you want, it was about what does this town need for the future. And we had conversations everywhere we could, so school fetes, football club, British Legion, called them community conversations, because consultations makes everyone die inside a little bit.
It's also kind of patronising.
It's really patronising. So it was more about let's have a conversation about this and let's talk about it. And that's how they were organised. It was a way in which getting every single person who was there to say what they thought and what they were afraid of and what they really hoped for and what the best kind of future that they could imagine looked like.
What did it look like?
It often looked quite similar.
Did it look like that?
People wanted vibrancy, and they wanted activity, and they wanted fun, and they wanted playfulness, and they wanted it to feel somewhere that they would be welcome. So I think that's where contemporary architecture is really important.
It came incredibly quickly because we've been working here for like 5 years by that point.
Yeah.
And it just kind of made sense because, you know, really this town is a plinth with little buildings on top of it. I mean, if you look at those sheds there, that is the building. And then if you look above it, the little quirky ad hoc bay windows popping out. You know, I love all this stuff. I love Clevedon Pier, but I also love this stuff, the kind of ad hoc improvised. And I thought that, you know, we might build a plinth and then over time, you know, we'd kind of build those little things and they would gradually accumulate on top and never stop accumulating. You know?
Yeah.
But remind me what happened when we presented this back in this incarnation to the town.
'Cause there's been a few previous incarnations.
That's right.
So we've taken it out to the community in terms of these community conversations 5 times. So we had almost every year. We had, this is how we're thinking now, and we talk about it. And then more often than not, what happens when you have these community conversations is that you're talking to people who have lived here all their lives and they know what works and what doesn't work, and they've seen things before and they've seen the things that have failed, and that all came into the conversation. So it was really clear what needed to change and what was going to work and what wasn't going to work. So without those community conversations, it would have been a kind of hollow and empty building that wouldn't have worked.
Looking at this now, you know, 8 years on, or in a way 18 years on in your case, what do you see here?
So what I'm really excited about is that I think what we've managed to create is the sense of a town or a village in itself. So we've extended Watchet, we've taken what's amazing about Watchet, so the public space that you can explore, the buildings that feel like they've been added to each other, the kind of little hidden places. Whenever you go to a new place, there's always courtyards that you just find anew, and we've got that here. But also what's happened is that from living here, we know so there's about 190 different community groups here, all doing loads of different things and all adding to the vibrancy and the reason to come here. And what we're doing is recreating that in East Quay. So there's all of these different artists doing all of these different things. There'll be community groups, there'll be education, there'll be school groups, there'll be musicians, there'll be theatre. So it's kind of just continuing the buzz that already exists in Watchet and allowing it into a new space where it can really flourish and more can happen. So really what we're trying to do is take the best of what is Watchet and put it into a new building and expand it.
I see a place that wouldn't have benefited from a building that was incredibly precious and fixed and designed in the way that many architects conceive of buildings, which is something that's incredibly beautifully detailed, which might be very nice, but it wouldn't have given anything to this place. It needed to be a kind of loose building that could take change, could take, you know, things being added to it, could take the accumulation of real life, you know, layer over layer over layer over time, and not get worse, get better and better and better. And I've spent a long time designing buildings in some ways that are quite precious in their detail. And in a way, I've kind of been weaning myself off that for many years with the buildings that I've been doing, particularly for myself in the woods and my own studio, which, you know, you've been to. And often I've been asked, what does it mean to upscale that stuff? You know, how do you upscale that way of working where you design a loose fit system that other people can fill in the gaps? And for me, you know, finally, at however old I am, this is the building that does that. It has done everything that I've been trying to do in a way for 20 years, you know, and it's like, where do I go now? What do I do next? So let's do another project.
Well, yeah, let's do it. And the thing I really love about it is that it's kind of been built and it's owned by so many different people. Exactly. So when we were trying to write a list of who to thank, it's like, oh my God, it's like 300 people.
I know.
Because so many, it's like a whole ecology in itself.
Amazing.
So many people have been involved in the design, but also delivery, the kind of the internal fit out, it's just this whole, and it goes out in the same way that a town or a village does.
Of course. It had to be multiple hands because otherwise it wouldn't have been true to this place.
It wouldn't have been true.
I love sitting here now listening to this work going on because you know, when I look over here, you know, I showed a photograph of this to somebody, and she's like, I love it, and I'm not sure, is it finished? But actually it doesn't matter whether it's finished or not. And the sense of things happening, being made, the industry that we've talked about a lot, is a really important part of this. I mean, it's never going to be finished in some ways, because I hope that the life that is kind of lived out, you know, gets better and better and better. The more marks that people make, they spill out, they weld a bit of stuff and leave a bit of,
I can't wait for the artist to spill paint and grow climbers up the walls.
Well, that first bit of graffiti is fantastic. So, yeah, that's the building.
Yeah.